You're done, Marcus. Garrett's voice sliced through the hum of the data center at 11:23 p.m. on a Wednesday night, 2 days before the largest electronic health records migration in the history of Pinnacle Health Network, and this cologne-drenched, resume-padding fraud just erased 17 years of my life like a corrupted file. I'm Marcus Cole, 49 years old, ex-Navy IT specialist turned director of clinical systems at Pinnacle Health, a network of 14 hospitals stretching from Atlanta to Jacksonville. That title sounds impressive until you realize it means I'm the guy who gets called at 3 a.m. when a surgeon in Savannah can't pull up a patient's allergy records mid-operation. I've been the invisible backbone of this organization through 4 CEOs, 3 ransomware attempts, and 1 memorable incident where a janitor unplugged our primary storage array to charge his phone. Garrett Palmer stood in the doorway of my office wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, scrolling through his phone like he was ordering dinner instead of destroying someone's career. The man had been VP of Digital Transformation for exactly 91 days, hired by the board because he played golf with the chairman, and once gave a TED Talk about disrupting healthcare through radical empathy, whatever that means. He smelled like sandalwood and entitlement. Effective immediately, he said, still not making eye contact. We're going in a different direction. My daughter Megan will be taking over clinical systems. She has fresh ideas, a modern perspective. My mortgage payment, $3,214 a month on a house I'd bought after the divorce to be closer to my son's school, flashed through my mind like a warning light. Caleb's braces, my mother's assisted living facility in Macon, the health insurance that covered her Parkinson's medication. You're replacing me, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest, 48 hours before we migrate 14 hospitals to a unified records platform. With your daughter, she's a certified digital health strategist, Garrett said, finally looking up from his phone with the confidence of a man who has never been told no. Top of her cohort at a 12-week accelerator program. She understands patient-centric design thinking. Megan Palmer, 26 years old, 12-week online certificate from some program that advertised on Instagram between teeth whitening kits and drop-shipping courses. The same woman who asked me last Tuesday if HIPAA was a type of health insurance. The same woman who suggested we store patient records on Google Drive because, and I quote, it has really good search. Garrett, I said, standing slowly, these systems manage real-time medication dispensing for 6,000 patients across 14 hospitals. Right now, there are ICU ventilators in 3 states whose alarm protocols are routed through the servers sitting 20 feet behind you. This isn't a website redesign. People die when these systems go down. He held up a hand-manicured nails, Cartier watch, the universal gesture of a man who thinks authority comes from accessories. Megan moves fast. She's already identified 17 legacy protocols she wants to streamline before the migration. You've been sandbagging progress with your obsessive redundancy checks. Those redundancy checks are why no patient at Pinnacle Health has ever received the wrong medication due to a system error in 17 years, I replied. Not once. 0. That's not sandbagging. That's engineering. He smiled the way people smile when they've already made their decision, and the conversation is just theater. Derek from security is waiting outside. Please don't make this difficult. Derek Washington. Good man. His wife taught Sunday school with my ex. His kid played baseball with my son. Now he had to walk me out of my own building like I'd stolen office supplies. I need to lock down the migration staging environment, I said, reaching for my keyboard. If someone touches the preload sequences without understanding the dependency chains, step away from the terminal, Marcus. Company property. I looked at my screens, 6 monitors arranged in a perfect arc, each one displaying a different vital organ of Pinnacle's digital nervous system. Patient records, medication dispensing, surgical scheduling, lab results, imaging archives, real-time vital sign monitoring. 14 hospitals breathing through these servers like lungs. 6,000 patients whose lives depended on systems that Garrett Palmer thought were legacy drag. I picked up my coffee mug, Navy anchor logo, chipped handle, 17 years of coffee stains layered like tree rings, and my truck keys. A scratched Toyota Tacoma keychain, bought used 4 years ago when the divorce settlement left me choosing between a car payment and Caleb's soccer registration. I chose soccer. The Tacoma had 187,000 miles and an air conditioning system that worked when it felt like it. I didn't log out. I didn't save the migration validation script I'd been running. I didn't close the staging environment. I just reached over and switched off my monitors, one by one, like closing eyes on the dying. Left my session hanging in volatile memory, where one wrong keystroke from an unqualified hand would cascade through every connected system like dominoes. You're going to regret this, Garrett. Not because of me. Because of math. He laughed. The kind of laugh that sounds expensive and means nothing. Innovation waits for no one. Marcus. Megan starts at 7 a.m. She'll have this place running like a startup by Friday. I walked past Derek. He couldn't look at me. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping beneath his skin. I'm sorry, man, he muttered. This is wrong. Not your fault, Derek. You didn't build the circus. You just worked the gate. The elevator smelled like industrial cleaner and institutional disappointment. Derek stood in the corner, staring at the floor numbers like they were a countdown to something terrible, which, technically, they were. I just didn't know it yet. When the doors opened in the lobby, I realized I'd left my parking badge on my desk. The same badge that operated the garage gate. Without it, my Tacoma was trapped in the basement like a prisoner. Derek, I need my badge. Unless you want me to ram the gate with a truck that's barely worth the insurance claim. We went back up. The elevator opened to music, some kind of lo-fi beats playlist bleeding from a portable speaker. And there, sitting in my ergonomic chair, at my workstation, surrounded by my 17 years of institutional knowledge, was Megan Palmer. She'd pushed aside my dual monitor setup to make room for a rose gold MacBook covered in stickers, Girl Boss Energy, Disrupt or Die, Future of Healthcare. She had an iced coffee from some boutique place downtown, condensation pooling on the server room's anti-static floor tiles, moisture near equipment that could short-circuit a rack worth more than her father's car. But the coffee wasn't what stopped my heart. It was the screen behind her. The migration staging console was open, and where I'd left a carefully sequenced preload validation running, there was now a colorful dashboard I'd never seen before. Some third-party monitoring tool she'd installed directly onto the production environment, like performing surgery with a Swiss Army knife, because the real scalpels looked intimidating. And there, pulsing in the corner of the screen like a tumor on an X-ray, firewall, exception external access enabled. Oh my God, Marcus, she squealed, spinning in my chair like it was a carnival ride. I've heard so much about you. Dad says you're like super old school. That's so retro cool. She didn't look guilty about sitting in my chair. She looked thrilled about it. Megan, I said, my voice flat as a flat line, did you open external access to the clinical network? She twirled a strand of hair around her finger. Yeah, I needed to install Cloud Pulse. It's this amazing monitoring tool. It gives you these gorgeous real-time visualizations. But your firewall kept blocking the download, so I just added an exception. Look how pretty the dashboard is now. My vision tunneled. She hadn't just added a firewall exception. She'd punched a hole in the security perimeter of a network carrying protected health information for 6,000 active patients across 14 hospitals. It was like removing the front door of a bank because the lock was inconvenient. That's not a monitoring tool, I said, gripping my parking badge so hard the plastic cracked. That's an open invitation to every hacker, bot, and ransomware operator scanning healthcare networks tonight. And there are a lot of them, Megan. Healthcare data sells for $250 per record on the dark web. You just put a for sale sign on 6,000 patients' most intimate medical information. You're being really negative, she sighed, rolling her eyes with the practiced disdain of someone who's never faced a consequence. Dad said you'd be like this. All doom and gloom. I'm just optimizing the user experience for the migration. You're not optimizing anything. You're performing open-heart surgery with gardening tools. Derek touched my arm. Marcus, we need to go. I looked at Megan, already back to adjusting the color scheme on her pretty new dashboard, while the digital walls of 14 hospitals stood wide open to the internet. She had no idea. She was arranging flowers on the deck of the Titanic. I did the math, the kind of math they don't teach in 12-week accelerator programs. An exposed healthcare network gets probed within minutes. Automated bots scan for open ports constantly. If a ransomware payload found that gap, it would encrypt patient records, lock out medication dispensing systems, freeze surgical schedules, ventilator alarms would stop routing, lab results would vanish. 14 hospitals would go dark simultaneously. The average cost of a healthcare data breach, $10.9 million. But that's just the paperwork. The real cost is measured in people. Patients whose insulin pumps stop receiving dosage updates. Surgeons who can't access blood type records mid-operation. Cancer patients whose chemotherapy protocols vanish from the system. But hey, at least the dashboard would have nice colors. I walked back to the elevator without another word. You can't teach neuroscience to a goldfish, In the elevator, I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the contact for Helen Zhao, the CEO, the woman who'd built Pinnacle from a single urgent care clinic in a strip mall in Decatur 22 years ago. She wasn't a tech person. She was a nurse practitioner who understood that healthcare is a chain and every link matters. I checked the time. 11:41 p.m. I typed with the deliberate precision of someone defusing a bomb. Your clinical network firewall is wide open. Every patient record is exposed. Ransomware hits healthcare targets between midnight and 4 a.m. You have minutes, not hours. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then Helen's reply, "Where are you?" "Lobby. Being escorted out for being too slow. Don't move. I'm 15 minutes away." I sat down on the lobby's uncomfortable modern furniture, the kind designed by people who hate the human body, and waited. Derek stood nearby, radiating discomfort. "Technically, you're trespassing," he said quietly. "Technically, Derek, I'm the only person within 100 miles who knows how to close the hole that's about to swallow this company. So, I think I'll sit here and have a moment." It started at 11:58 p.m. The first sign was subtle, a flicker on the lobby's display screen showing Pinnacle's promotional material. Happy families, smiling doctors, building healthier communities together. The images stuttered, froze, then scrambled into digital garbage. "That's weird," said the night receptionist, a young guy named Tommy, frowning at his computer. My screen just went crazy. I knew exactly what was happening. The probes had found Megan's open door. Something was inside the network, spreading laterally through shared authentication tokens, hopping from system to system like a virus, jumping between cells. At 12:01 a.m., the phone started. Not ringing, screaming. Every line on the switchboard lit up simultaneously, then went to static. The VoIP system shares bandwidth with the clinical network. When something eats the network, voice traffic is the first casualty. Then the emails stopped. Then, the pagers, yes. Hospitals still use pagers, because some technologies survive for a reason. The silence was worse than the screaming. Silence in a hospital network means systems are dying. The stairwell door exploded open, and Rachel Kim, our senior database administrator, burst into the lobby. She was barefoot, having apparently kicked off her shoes to run faster. Her laptop clutched to her chest like a life preserver. "Marcus!" "Oh, thank God you're still here. It's everywhere. Every system. Patient records are encrypting. The medication dispensing network at Savannah Memorial just locked out. There are patients on IV drips whose dosing schedules just disappeared. We can't access anything." "What's the ransom screen say?" I asked, checking my watch like we were discussing parking meters. 300 Bitcoin. 72-hour countdown. They're threatening to publish patient data if we don't pay. I did the math. 300 Bitcoin at current prices, roughly $19 million, plus the breach notification costs. Plus HIPAA fines up to $50,000 per compromised record, times 6,000 patients, plus the lawsuits, plus the human cost that no spreadsheet can calculate. "Sounds expensive," I said. "Maybe somebody should have kept the firewall closed." "Please, Marcus." Dr. Okafor at Jacksonville is mid-surgery and lost access to the patient's imaging. He's operating blind. There are NICU babies in Atlanta whose monitoring just went dark. This isn't about corporate politics anymore. People could die tonight. That hit different. That hit the place where 17 years of protecting these systems had built something deeper than professional pride. These were my patients too, in a way. I'd never met them, but I'd spent almost 2 decades making sure the digital infrastructure that kept them alive never missed a heartbeat. "I can't help, Rachel. I was terminated tonight." Garrett made that very clear. The revolving door spun with force, and Helen Zhao walked in. She wasn't wearing her usual executive armor, press suit, perfect posture, measured words. She was in a tracksuit and running shoes, hair pulled back with a rubber band, reading glasses still perched on her head. She looked like what she was, a nurse who'd become a CEO, now watching her patients' lives threatened by the very people she'd trusted to protect them. She walked straight to me. Her eyes were red. I'd never seen Helen Zhao look afraid before. "How bad?" she asked. "Catastrophic. Active ransomware. Patient systems encrypted, clinical data locked, medication networks offline, NICU monitoring dark." She pressed both hands against her face, and for a moment, I saw every one of her 55 years and the weight of 6,000 patients pressing down on her shoulders. "Can you fix it?" I picked up my coffee mug from the box of personal items at my feet. "That depends, Helen. Are we fixing the malware, or are we fixing the management infection that let it in?" She looked at me, and I saw the exact moment she understood. Garrett told the board you were resistant to innovation, that you were clinging to outdated methodologies. He showed us Megan's portfolio case studies, certifications, a redesigned proposal with animated charts that looked like a TED Talk. He showed you a 12-week online certificate and a daughter who thinks HIPAA is a type of health insurance. The lobby felt like a courtroom now. Tommy had given up trying to answer phones that only produced static. Rachel was on her cell phone trying to reach the other hospitals. Derek stood by the door like a man watching a building burn. "What do you want?" Helen asked. "I want the infection removed." Garrett, "Megan, gone. Before I touch a keyboard, and I want it public. I want every person in this organization to know that nepotism nearly killed patients tonight." Garrett has been with us for 3 months. He's the board chairman's golf buddy. If I fire him, then start calling next of kin, I said, and the words tasted like gunmetal. Because somewhere in Jacksonville, a surgeon is operating on a person whose medical history he can't see. Somewhere in Atlanta, premature babies are in incubators with no digital monitoring. Every minute you spend protecting Garrett's feelings is a minute those patients don't have. She stood motionless for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. Then she pulled out her phone. "Garrett," she said, her voice the quiet, terrifying calm of a woman who'd built an empire from a strip mall clinic. "Come to the lobby. Now. Bring your daughter." While we waited, Rachel updated me in rapid whispers. The ransomware had propagated through 80% of the network. Patient records at 11 of 14 hospitals were encrypted. 3 hospitals had switched to paper charts, a contingency I'd insisted on maintaining against Garrett's objections. He'd called them wasteful. Tonight they were keeping patients alive. Garrett arrived 11 minutes later, looking irritated rather than afraid, the expression of a man who doesn't understand the building is on fire because he's never been anywhere near the furnace. "Helen, this is ridiculous," he started. "We're handling the cyber attack. My IT security vendor is on the phone. They want a retainer of—" "It's not a cyber attack," Helen cut him off. "It's your daughter." She opened the firewall. She installed unauthorized software on the production network. She created the vulnerability that let ransomware into a system protecting 6,000 patients. Garrett's face cycled through confusion, denial, and something that might have been the first flicker of genuine fear. "That's not Megan, wouldn't she's trained in." "She's trained in nothing," I said, stepping forward. "She disabled the security perimeter of 14 hospitals because the firewall was inconvenient. She installed a monitoring tool from the open internet onto a HIPAA-protected clinical network. She did exactly what someone with 12 weeks of training and unlimited access would do. She guessed." Megan stood behind her father, still clutching her iced coffee. Mascara streaked down her face. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I just wanted it to look better." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I thought about the NICU babies in Atlanta. "You're both terminated," Helen said. "Effective now. Security will escort you out. Your access is revoked. If either of you speaks to media before our legal team contacts you, we'll pursue every remedy available under law." "You can't do this," Garrett sputtered. The board chairman is going to be very interested in how his golf buddy nearly killed patients through nepotistic hiring," Helen replied. "Now, get out of my hospital." They left. Megan was crying. Garrett was already on his phone, probably calling a lawyer. Neither of them looked back at the building they'd nearly destroyed. Helen turned to me. "Save them," she said. "Save my patients." I set down my coffee mug and cracked my neck. "Get me root access to everything. Get me a direct line to every hospital's charge nurse. And get me coffee that doesn't come from a machine that also dispenses hot chocolate." Helen made one call. "Override authorization. Restore credentials for user M. COLADMN. Priority Alpha. Confirm." I walked into the data center like a general returning to the battlefield. Rachel, Shane, a junior tech who'd been hiding in the break room, and 2 other members of my team were already there, looking like survivors of a shipwreck. The screens were a horror show, red everywhere, encryption progress bars advancing like an army across every system. The ransomware was methodical, well-designed, and absolutely thriving in the wide-open environment Megan had created. "All right," I said, sitting down and pulling a disinfectant wipe from my pocket. "You don't want to know what lives on shared keyboards. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to do something the ransomware operators don't expect." I pulled up a root terminal. The black screen, with the blinking cursor, my oldest friend. "What they don't know," I continued, typing commands with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat, "is that for the past 4 years, I've been running a shadow backup protocol, completely air-gapped, disconnected from the main network. updated every 4 hours via a one-way physical data transfer that nothing on the internet can touch. You what? Rachel breathed. It's called Cole Sleeps Better v3. It lives on isolated servers in a locked closet in the basement that I told facilities management was a storage room for obsolete equipment, which technically it was. Just not the kind of obsolete they imagined. You built a secret backup? Helen asked from the doorway, her voice caught between awe and exasperation. I built a survival kit. Because I knew, Helen, that someday someone would do exactly what happened tonight. Maybe not Megan specifically, but someone with just enough access and just enough confidence to open a door that should stay closed. I wrote it in my risk assessment 3 years ago, page 14, the one Garrett used as a coaster for his latte. I typed the activation sequence, every keystroke deliberate, every command a link in a chain I'd forged over 4 years of careful, methodical, allegedly too slow work. Rachel, kill every external connection. We're going completely dark. Shane, I need you in the basement, second door past the boiler room. There's a rack of servers behind a shelf of old monitors. Flip the red switch. Only the red one. And Shane? Yeah? Run. He ran. 2 minutes later, my screen changed. A single line of green text appeared in the sea of red. Cole, sleeps, better, V3 Shadow recovery initiated. What is that? Helen whispered. That is 4 years of paranoia paying off. Every patient record, every medication schedule, every surgical protocol, every lab result, copied, verified, and stored completely offline, updated every 4 hours. The ransomware can't encrypt what it can't reach, and it can't reach what it doesn't know exists. The recovery cascaded through the network like dawn breaking over the ocean. System by system, hospital by hospital, the red screens turned green. Jacksonville imaging restored. Atlanta NICU monitoring restored. Savannah medication dispensing restored. I picked up the direct line to Jacksonville. Dr. Okafor, this is Marcus Cole. Your imaging system is back online. You should have full access to your patient's records in 30 seconds. The sound on the other end was a man exhaling a breath he'd been holding for 40 minutes while operating on a human being with incomplete information. Marcus. Thank God. Thank paranoia, I said. It's underrated. It took 3 hours to fully restore all 14 hospitals. 3 hours of precise, methodical, allegedly too slow work. By 3:30 a.m., every system was green, every patient was monitored, every medication schedule was running. The ransomware had been isolated, documented, and quarantined for the FBI's cybercrime division, who were very interested in a breach of this magnitude. At 7 a.m., Helen convened an emergency board meeting. I sat at her right hand, still in my work clothes, coffee-stained and running on adrenaline, and the grim satisfaction of a man who'd just been proven right in the most expensive way possible. The crisis has been resolved, Helen announced, thanks to Marcus Cole, who I am appointing as our new Chief Information Security Officer, with full authority over all technology personnel decisions and system changes across all 14 facilities. Every board member turned to look at me. The chairman, Garrett's golf buddy, was notably silent, studying the table like it contained the answers to very uncomfortable questions. Mr. Cole, a board member asked, can you guarantee this won't happen again? I can guarantee it won't happen this way again, I said. I'm implementing a policy effective immediately. No one touches critical systems without my written authorization. No exceptions. No nephews, no nieces, no golf buddies' kids with 12-week certificates. Competence isn't optional when lives are on the line. They approved everything unanimously. Funny how nearly losing $300 million in fines and lawsuits clarifies an organization's priorities. Back in my data center, with my name on the access list, and no one else's, I sat in my chair and pulled up the system dashboard one final time. 14 hospitals, 6,000 patients, all green, all breathing, all alive because a man they called too slow had spent 4 years quietly building a safety net that nobody asked for and everybody needed. I opened my desk drawer. Behind the stack of maintenance logs and the emergency flashlight, there was a bottle of Woodford Reserve I'd been saving. Not for celebrations exactly. For moments when the math finally works out, I poured 2 fingers into my Navy mug and raised it toward the wall of green monitors. Too slow, I said to the humming servers that had become the only audience I'd ever needed. Turns out, slow is just another word for still here when everything else falls apart. Somewhere in Atlanta, a premature baby's heart monitor beeped steadily in a NICU ward. Its data flowing through systems I'd built, backed up by redundancies I'd hidden, protected by paranoia I'd earned over 17 years of watching people mistake speed for competence. Garrett and Megan would land on their feet, people like them always do. Some other organization would hire them based on a polished resume and a firm handshake, and the cycle would repeat. But not here, not in my house. I finished my bourbon, rinsed the mug, and started my morning system check. Same as every morning for 17 years. Methodical, thorough, allegedly too slow. The servers hummed their approval. They'd always understood.